Hello, this is Awaken to Truth podcast, and I am your host, Michael Smith. We are coming to you today with the Sunday sound off, so we trim out all the fluff and just get right to it. We're going to be looking at a few different subjects today, but today, to start with, we're going to look at the NFL playoffs. I don't know if you have been watching them the last couple of weeks. I have watched most of the games. And as we know, we have gotten used to seeing sports played in front of no one. In some cases, there was 8 to maybe 10 or 11,000 fans in some places. But, I mean, in the grand scheme of the 50, 60,000 seat stadiums, it's just, there's just hardly anybody there. But so that doesn't surprise us at this point. What did surprise me is that the ratings have fallen off the cliff for the playoffs this year. The ratings were down slightly for the regular season, about 7%. So that, not a big difference. But the first weekend of the playoffs last weekend, the ratings were down over 20%. 25% on Saturday, 20% on Sunday. And so I didn't really think that would be the case, but evidently people are just not as interested this year. And I think that we're seeing that take place across sports in general. I know that I have really, for the last 3 or 4 years, been a bigger NFL fan than I have college football. I have really lost interest in college football in about the last 3 years. Other than my Ohio State Buckeyes, I watch their games, I root for them, but this year, even them, it just did not mean a lot to me this year, and so but I still am an NFL fan, and I've watched a lot of NFL, but evidently people are checking out, and I think it's there's probably many factors in that, but one of it is just a byproduct of there being no fans present. We feel disconnected from it. It's like you're watching these professional athletes play these big scrimmage games every week. I saw some reruns this past week of playoff games last year, and the stadiums are packed, and you looked at it, or I looked at it, and I was like, wow, that actually looks weird. It is now becoming normal to see empty stadiums and players playing in front of no one, because we've seen it now over and over. We've seen it with the NBA playoffs when they played in that little bubble in Orlando, and I don't think anybody watched the NBA playoffs. The finals was the worst watched finals in modern history. It was way down. I did not watch 1 second of the finals. And some people, didn't watch because they're put off with some of the statements that the players are making and the things that they're putting on the back of their jerseys, the little, whatever they are. They all had a statement to make on the back of their jerseys. They didn't have their names on their jerseys. They had like, education reform goes in for a layup, that kind of thing. And I think people are just getting so sick of politics being intertwined into everything. And so the NBA... the NBA did that, and I think they paid a price for it, at least in the finals, as far as that concerns, in the playoffs last year. But another part of it is just it was in that little gem, like where there was no fans, and it just takes something away from the game. The NFL, I think people are just being disconnected. It's not going to surprise me if Major League Baseball here in a few months starts, and there's just not the interest, especially if we still cannot go to ballparks at that time. And so I think that's just, empty stadiums, empty ratings, and people are seemingly slowly losing interest. And some of these leagues, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm glad I don't have to figure it out. But I think it's going to be challenging for them in the years to come if they don't do something to recapture people's attention. And, I guess there's nothing they can do about the fact that no fans are allowed in. And when that is going to be, I don't know. I'm not sure. This vaccine is out, and so I would think that they would begin to let people back in stadiums once the vaccine begins to circulate. I certainly hope that they're not going to try to make you show a vaccine card or something like that to get into a stadium. I think that will further cause the decline of some of these major sports. And I also do think that it's all of the political posturing that they have engaged in that is turning people off, because people don't want to watch their sports stars to figure out what they feel about the hottest political issue. We just don't. And I get it. You know, people say, well, they can make whatever statements they want. That's their platform. They can use it. It is, but they're also going to have to deal with whatever the consequences of that are. And I don't want to be inundated with politics when I turn on the NFL or the MLB or the NBA. I would rather just watch the game. That's what it's for. It's an escape from those things. It's a time to come together for fans of a team, whether they're Democrat, whether they're Republican, whether they're independent, where they could just come together and root for that team and not have to worry about all of the division taking place in politics. But sports has kind of decided to insert themselves in that game, and I don't think it's going to be a good move for them. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be positive. So hopefully they will learn from that and they'll back off from it. I kind of hate to see the NFL down 25%. Surprising. Did not expect to see it. Empty stadiums, I expected. Empty ratings, I did not. Moving on to the impeachment that took place in the House this past week. President Trump has been impeached for a second time. It's almost getting comical at this point. He is set to leave office in 3 days. And they impeach him again. Nancy Pelosi is going on about how, he has to be impeached because he can't be trusted with the nuclear codes. We can't trust him for another 3 days. Or I guess at the time they impeached him, maybe another 6 or 7 days. But there was some interesting developments in that impeachment. And one was right here in Northeast Ohio. In my particular district, the district of Anthony Gonzalez. And Anthony Gonzalez is a sophomore congressman in, obviously here from the state of Ohio. He was a former wide receiver from the Ohio State Buckeyes. And he ran as a Trumpian-type Republican, America First, bring back jobs to Northeast Ohio. And that really would be a message that would resound in Northeast Ohio because Northeast Ohio has lost so many jobs over the past 20, 30 years. But he ran as a Trumpian-type Republican. And when I say that, I'm not saying that his personality is really like Trump, but he ran on that platform of America First. And incidentally, people have tried to make that. They've said, well, that is nationalism. Yes, it is a form of nationalism to say America first. But then the media did this little trick where they said it's white nationalism. Well, nobody said anything about white nationalism. To say America first, I guess maybe you can not agree with that if you want to. It seems like a lot of people on the quote-unquote left side of the aisle don't agree with it, and that's fine. Do you want China first? Maybe you should just move to China. Do you want Canada first? I like the Canadians, but if I am in America, I want things, I do want my interests to be certainly considered. Do you want the European Union first? Where are you wanting first? To me, a statement from the preeminent leader, someone running for the United States president, for them to say that I have a position that I want America first, not an isolationist position. We know we have to do deals with other people. We know we have to have mutually beneficial relationships with other countries. But hey, if you're in Germany and your chancellor says, I think I'm going to run on a platform of Sweden first. I really am interested in Sweden's interest and what it is that they need. Well, that would make zero sense. Of course, the Chancellor of Germany should be putting the interest of the German people that elected her first. Same with any country. That doesn't mean we don't work together. That doesn't mean we don't make compromises. That doesn't mean that we can't mutually benefit from the strengths and weaknesses of one nation to the other, that we may be good at one thing so we can export this, and another may be good at that thing so they can export this, and we can both get it cheaper because we work together. Yes, all of that, is certainly in play. But to say America first just simply means we want to make sure that we protect our interest, because that's who, as the president, you're representing. I have little confidence Joe Biden will do that, but we'll see how it goes. But anyhow, Anthony Gonzalez, he ran on this America First type agenda, but then he made the decision to cast a vote to impeach Donald Trump. And it was Donald Trump's coattails that he rode into Congress in 2018 and then again in 2020. And Anthony evidently has received significant backlash from this because he sent out his little weekly huddle. He sends that out to people in his district, and I'm in his district. So it says that many were concerned about his vote for impeachment this week, and it represented an unforgivable betrayal for which there is no reconciliation. And then he goes on to say that many believe that he has let them down. And he goes on to say that there is a feeling that he does not believe that this anger and this sense of betrayal can necessarily be fixed. So then he goes on to say, but listen, you don't really know who I am. This is who I am. And then he takes some shots at China. So he's trying to get in everyone's good graces by saying, hey, I'm still going to fight China. I'm still in the battle. I don't think it's going to work, Anthony. I think you made a really bad move. The Democrats didn't need you to impeach Trump. They had the majority. All you need in Congress is a simple majority to get the impeachment through. Why he threw in his vote with them and committed political suicide, I don't know, but we've seen quite a bit of that taking place in this year. It's a difficult year, and there's a lot of difficult decisions that need to be made, but that was one that was quite shocking because Anthony was kind of a rising star to some degree, and he probably had the potential maybe 6, 8, 10 years down the road to be a senator in this state of Ohio. I don't think that's going to happen now. I think Anthony made a big mistake. But this impeachment is, number one, in order to impeach someone, they're supposed to have committed a high crime. Well, the crime that they are saying that Trump has committed is essentially he is responsible for these people that went into the Capitol, and he is responsible for spreading misinformation about the election. Spreading misinformation about the election. So that's a high crime now. Number one, I don't know that he was spreading that much misinformation about the election. There's a lot of crazy things about the election that unfortunately just did not ever seem to get to come to have the type of trial that I think that it should have. And there's a whole lot of people out there, millions of people that feel that way. And they're not all Trump supporters. There's a significant amount. When I say significant, 17% of Democrats are polling that they felt something was suspicious about the election. So, to impeach someone on this basis is nothing more than partisan hackery. It's trying to assassinate the Trump movement, this quote-unquote, as they would say, white nationalist. Well, is Anthony Gonzalez a white nationalist? He sounds Hispanic to me. Sounds to me like he just was running on a bring jobs back to America. If that's white nationalism, then hey, I'm all for it. But that's not white nationalism. Remember, I have told you over and over and over, in order to discredit something that's a threat to your agenda, the tool and the tactic of the left is to put racism or to put misogyny or to put some kind of label on it to make it seem unappealing. Well, they are doing that to the ultimate level to Donald Trump. They are trying to make him so toxic and so unappealing that people totally and completely forget anything that was associated with Donald Trump, that people never remember a single thing about the Trump presidency. And you find this unbelievable, unprecedented type of action taking place as these social media companies have kicked him off and have kicked many thousands of conservative voices off of their platforms. Yet, I'm going to attach a couple of tweets to the notes of the show. So if you go down to the notes in the podcast, hopefully you guys know how to get there. Just scroll down and you'll see the notes. I'm going to attach these tweets in the notes of the show. And these tweets are not offensive, evidently, to Twitter. President Trump is removed. Many people are censored and removed. And many people, they say, well, you're inciting hate. You're inciting hate speech. However, I'm going to attach a couple of tweets, and I want you to be the judge as to whether Twitter is really concerned about hate speech. Because these two tweets, they're tweeted by two different people, but it says, hashtag death to America. Inshallah is what this first one says. The second one says something else. But they both tweet the same picture. One is a mock picture of President Trump being hung. Another is a photoshopped picture of him being hung after he has been beaten. You can tell his face has been beaten so much, like kind of black and blue. His face has been beaten and he's being hung from the rafters of the White House. But these tweets haven't been flagged. These tweets haven't been removed. So you're telling me that Twitter is concerned about hate speech? No. Twitter is concerned about their agenda. And we need to begin to see through this. There is such a partisan divide and a partisan agenda in America that we can't call things for what they are because we can't call out things that are so-called on our side. Well, we have to get past that. If there's something on our side that's stupid, we need to call it stupid. If there's something on our side that's dangerous, we need to point out that it's dangerous. We need to stop just protecting our sides and try to look for the interests that can help us to best move forward as a society. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, many times there are no solutions. Some things are so complicated that they cannot be fully solved. There's not solutions, there's simply trade-offs. You trade one problem for another problem, and you try to pick the problem that helps the most people and is negative to the least people. But there's no way for anyone or any politician or any party or any whatever to solve everyone's problems. It's just not going to happen. Moving on to the final topic today, that is the printing press in full force. And what I mean by that is Joe Biden has given his first address as to what it is that he's planning to do when he gets in office. And evidently the first thing that he's going to do is to enact another $1.9 trillion bill. And in that bill, there's going to be more checks mailed out to Americans. And it's going to be $2,000 per American. They just sent out a round of checks for $600 apiece. So previously they had sent out checks for $600 apiece, I think it was, back in April or whatever. So we've had two rounds of these incredibly large stimuluses. Now there's going to be another round, $1.9 trillion, $2,000 apiece. So let's just say that 300 million Americans qualify, because there are qualifications for this. Let's say 300 million Americans qualify for these this $2,000. I don't think it's probably that many, but let's just say it is that many. That's $600 billion. So where is the other $1.3 trillion going to go? Well, it's going to be beefing up unemployment. It's going to be, doing various things. And here's the thing. I get that coronavirus came and that all of this took place and that there was, difficult positions and that the government had told people to stay at home. And so when you tell people to stay at home, you have to do something for them. But let me just be frank with you. The amount of money that people are getting from this is crumbs compared to the amount of money that's being spent. And it doesn't offset the damage that's being done by still not opening up economies. Why don't we stop sending out checks? Look, I've never been in favor of sending out checks. For the first time ever, I've been okay with sending out these types of stimulus checks because the situation was so strange with the pandemic and all of that. But this is not a sustainable model for America to continue, because I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's not as if we have this money. Okay, we don't have this money sitting around and we're just benevolently sending it out to Americans everywhere. We are borrowing this money, continuing to borrow this money. And do you know what happens when we borrow it? We pay interest on it. We have to pay it back. Who do we pay it back to? We pay it back to the big central bankers that run the nation, called the Federal Reserve, who is not a federal institution. It is a private corporation. It is a private central bank. They pull the money strings in our nation, and when they print off these massive packages, they charge the United States interest on that money that they have borrowed. Do you know who pays back the interest? We do, through our taxes. We pay such high taxes because of the Federal Reserve System. If we did not have the Federal Reserve System, we would not have to have taxes as high as we have them. But when you continually borrow money and then you have to pay interest on the money you borrow, then you have to get the money from somewhere to pay back the interest on the money that you've spent that you didn't actually have. So that's the system that we have. And we're perpetuating that system, and we're going to put another $2 trillion on top of that system. I wonder, is Joe Biden going to raise taxes? I would take a guess that he's going to. I think he's going to. Is that because God just gave me a prophecy? No. It's because Joe Biden said, I'm going to raise taxes. And he's going to raise it on people. He said that he's only going to raise it on a certain amount. Let's see. Okay? Let's see. Let's wait and see. When his tax bill is passed, let's see if he only raises it on the people that he said he was going to. I am going to bet that that's not going to be the case. That's going to be my bet. And I also bet that he's going to raise it on all of the corporations. And do you know what's going to happen? The corporations are going to take their money and they're going to take it overseas, and they're not going to bring it to America anymore because they're not going to pay a 35% tax rate. That's what happens. Do you know what happened back in the 1940s, 1930s, when the maximum tax rate was over 70%? Do you know what happened? Did the government just rake in the money, and did they just were they just swimming in money because they were taxing to death the people? No. You know what happened? People didn't pay it because people are just not going to pay obscene amounts of taxes. They just won't do it. They just don't do it. Well, the corporations can do that legally. They'll just take it offshore. They'll just take it off seas, and those dollars will be somewhere else, and those dollars will never hit the American economy. Sounds like a wonderful plan, but hey, it's the direction we're going. It's what we're dealing with. The printing press is fired up. It's ready to go. And so the only question is, are they going to continue to be able to keep inflation from beginning to roar once again? With low interest rates, which they currently have, close to zero, and money supply being expanded by the trillions, it would make sense that inflation is probably going to be on the horizon. Now, here's where I'll leave you tonight. Most of you, I would think, know what inflation is. And so if I'm explaining this, I'm not explaining this because I think that you don't know. I'm just explaining this in the event that there is some that don't know, because some people don't. They just don't think about stuff like this. So, inflation is when your purchasing power is stolen. It's a hidden tax. It's not that things are getting more expensive. It's that the dollars that you have in your pocket are getting more worthless. That's what inflation is. That's why in the 1970s, you could buy a brand new car for, $5,000-$6,000. Now, all these years later, to buy a car that is brand new, at a minimum, you're going to pay $35,000. In many cases, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, and $70,000. Is it that these cars have gotten so much more valuable? No, it's that the dollar has gotten so much less potent. It buys far less because there's so many more dollars out there chasing the goods and services. And the only way that you can keep inflation at bay is to keep production moving at a high level so that we're continuing to grow the economy and inflation doesn't take off and run wild. Well, if we continue to print money and we continue to shut down the biggest parts of our country, California, New York, and some of these big engines of the American economy, it's going to be difficult to keep production at a level that's going to keep inflation at bay. And so it's going to be an interesting time moving forward. We may talk about this a little bit more, about the Federal Reserve and taxation and all of that. And it's kind of a big scam, but it's the system that we have. And it's the system that we've been on since 1971, a fiat currency. If you don't believe me, take out your dollars and look at what they say. If you take out your wallet, take out your money, and look at it, it says Federal Reserve Note. What is a note? A note is a piece of debt. When you take out a car note, it's debt. When you take out a house note, known as a mortgage, it's debt. What is that little greenback in your wallet? It's a little piece of debt owed to the Federal Reserve that the United States government pays back with your money when they tax you and send it in. And so that is where we're going to end today. This Sunday Sound Off has been enjoyable for me. I hope it was enjoyable for you going down through these topics. Interesting times that we live in. Truly. Now, there's a lot we could complain about, but there's also a positive side to this. We live in fascinating times. We get to sit back and watch in my opinion, some of the most interesting things in the last 100 or 150 years are taking place right before us right now, and we get to sit back and we get to look at it and we get to see it unfold. And here's the thing. If you know the Lord Jesus Christ, you get to know that you have someone that is going to keep his hand upon you and isn't going to leave you or forsake you, is going to guide you through all of the storms, guide you through all of the different trials that may take place, and you are going to be okay, because Jesus said you don't have to worry. Now, just because we don't have to worry, that doesn't mean we don't prepare. That doesn't mean we don't know. And that doesn't mean we don't investigate. And that's what I believe our responsibility is. But ultimately, we have to leave it into his hands, because he is the one that takes care of his people. David said, I have never seen the righteous forsaken or God's seed begging for bread. So regardless of what happens with the Federal Reserve, the economy of God is sure, the economy of God is solid, and the economy of God has existed and will continue to exist from the beginning of time until all time. So be encouraged, be blessed. This was the Sunday Sound Off, and we will be back next week with some of our other regular biblical type of episodes. God bless you, and we will see you then.